Well, hello, avid readers. Trisha Goyer here, and I am so excited to talk to Sarah Monzon, and we are going to be talking about her book, An Overdue Match, which is super fun, cute, heartwarming, all the things. But before we get started on that, Sarah, why don't you just start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, well, I'm Sarah Monzon. I'm a military spouse. My husband's a Navy chaplain, so we move around a lot. So I can't really say I'm from a certain place. I guess I was born in Florida, so I guess you say I'm from Florida, but now it's just wherever we live. I've got two kids, Elijah and Ariana, 13 and 10, and yeah,
And you write books
and I
and
read
balance
books.
moving and
Yeah,
kids. And my brother-in-law was a Navy chaplain for many years, and they lived all over the place.
yeah.
So
Every 2 to 3 years, it's someplace new.
yeah, very cool. Okay, so we're going to talk about An Overdue Match. And right away, the characters are so unique. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about the premise in the book, and then I want to dive into these characters a little bit more.
Sure. Okay, so the premise of the book is it's about Evangeline Kelly, who is a small town librarian, and she just moves to this new town because she wants a fresh start. She has alopecia, so she's bald, and everybody in her old town, like that's how they knew her, as like the bald
Mm-hmm.
lady who got dumped by her fiance. And so she kind of wants just a new start, a fresh start. She wears wigs. Nobody here knows she's bald. But she is definitely hurting, especially considering her fiance dumped her. Anyway, so she does not feel like she is heroine material even in her own story, but
Mm-hmm.
she's just somebody who is in love with love and she doesn't want to give up on love. Not not so much for herself, but so she decides that she is going to play matchmaker with her library patrons by using their checkout histories to match them, which I know is ethically not great, but you know,
She's fictional. She's
she's
fictional,
yes,
okay?
and she does apologize later on. Just because that. Yeah, so she uses the library patrons checkout histories to matchmake, but she's new in town, so she doesn't really know everyone's histories, and there's a little shenanigan faux pas that happen. And yeah, then Ty comes in. Ty's our hero, and he kind of he's interested in her, but she keeps like putting him off because she doesn't trust so well anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but he's not one to give up easily. So he says, I'll help you out and not tell your secret about matchmaking, but you have to go on a date with me every time I help you out. Because she just won't give him the time of day. That's pretty much the premise of the book.
And right away, you jump in, and he has turned in a book at the library, and she's appalled
Oh
by
yeah.
the way he's turned in a book. And we know there's a story behind that also, but like right away, just her voice, like her voice comes along very clear, and she doesn't think she's heroin material, and she's like very upset at dog eared, which I dog ear I dog ear books all the time. And yesterday, no, 2 days ago, I started reading a new book aloud to my kids, and I purposely did not dog ear it because I'm like, oh my goodness, Evangeline would get on me.
Evangeline had you. She was in your head, was she?
She
That's
was in
right.
my head. I'm like, I will find a bookmark for this, and I still haven't found a bookmark. But I mean, there's one around here
As
somewhere.
long
Yeah.
as it's an appropriate bookmark. Yeah. Later on, there was an inappropriate bookmark that was used at the library this
Oh
time.
no.
Yes,
Oh, see,
it
slips of paper.
slips of paper is fine. Slips of paper is fine. This one, when she gets to it, I think it's funny.
Yeah.
make sure
Well, it
make sure
seems
it's
like
appropriate.
Yeah, it seems like you had so much fun. First, talk about her first because we're gonna get to Ty in a second. But it sounds like you had so much fun with her. Like, how did you come up with the character of Evangeline? Because she's so quirky and fun, but immediately lovable. Like, no, she needs love. Like, she's the sweetest. But then you see why she doesn't trust people because of what
Mhm.
happened. So, how did you? Did she come fully formed? Did she like reveal herself over time, or how did you come upon her as a character?
Yeah, so I've been wanting to write a character that has alopecia for a while now. My mom has alopecia. And so I've always wanted to write a story for her in that aspect, you
Mhm.
know? I remember when Barbie came out with their line of dolls that I don't remember what they're called, like Truly Mean or something. That's not that one, but anyway, there's one that the Barbie is bald, and my mom was so excited. You know, she's 50 some years old, and she buys all of her granddaughters Barbie dolls that are bald because they're just like grandma. You know, so
Aw.
representation is just so important. And so I have never. I think I've maybe have read two novels that have characters that have alopecia. Um, and so in just this huge ocean of books, there just is not a lot of representation. So I wanted to write one. And that's how she kind of came about. There is a number of things in my mom's personal journey that I added into that story. So
Mm.
she has similar, but not, they're definitely not the same. Um, so yeah.
And explain alopecia for those who may not be familiar
Yeah.
with it.
So
Uh,
alopecia, there are three like main ones. There's alopecia areata, which is spot balding, so you'll lose like spots in your hair. And then there's alopecia totalis, which is where you lose all the hair on your head, but you still have like eyebrows, other body hair. And then there's alopecia universalis, which is you lose all your body hair, and that's the kind that Evangeline has.
mhm.
So
And
she
there's no reason why you don't
it's an
know.
autoimmune, yeah, so
Mhm.
your autoimmune, system kind of it attacks your hair follicles, and yeah. There are treatments, some work for some work for don't work for others.
Yeah. But she's a very lovable person. We love her right from the beginning, and she, is discovering kind of the people around the town. She's very observant, keeps an eye on everybody,
Yeah.
has new friendships. So she's a very lovable. Let's talk about Ty because he's also like not your typical hero. Like his description of him is like, oh, we're doing this. Okay, so describe Ty a little
Okay,
bit.
so Ty is kind of what I would say as a wolf, no, a sheep in wolf's clothing. So he's a really
Hmm.
good, like cinnamon roll, really sweet guy, but the persona that he gives off is more edgy. And he grew up in this small little town, but he kind of had some teen years that everybody remembers. He went away, and now he's coming back, and everyone remembers those teen years. So they're kind of a little standoffish. It doesn't help that he comes back to a very small southern town and opens a tattoo parlor.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, there's a little stigma still sometimes, especially in the South, about tattoos, and so the fact that he comes back, opens a tattoo parlor, people are a little bit wary. So yeah, he's also this was fun for me. He's a short hero as far as usually romance novels, they're tall, dark, handsome
Yes.
type of thing. He's short. He's 5'4". My husband is 5'3".
Oh, okay. You
No,
see?
well, no, sorry, 5'4". So I say 5'3", he's gonna get mad. He's like 5'3"
Oh,
and three
yeah.
quarters. Anyway, he's just a smidge shorter than I am. So it was fun to write a hero where the hero and heroine are pretty much the same height. I have a lot of personal experience with that. It makes things
Yeah.
very easy. Nobody gets a cramp in their
Yes.
neck. Nobody gets
There you go.
backaches. Yeah, so that was fun.
Yeah, and I love because he's a neck tattoo,
Yeah,
and she's,
I
like,
wanted to make
just
one like
staring.
very prominent. You know.
Yeah. And I'm like, "Okay, I'm loving this. Christian fiction has come a long way, and I'm here for it. I am here for something different because
Yeah.
sometimes you kinda just gloss over the descriptions because they're so similar in so many books, like, "Okay, what color hair?" But they're pretty much tall, dark, handsome, or blonde. I mean, just
Yeah.
switching the hair color around. But
Mhm.
I love that he's unique. And I think it brings a freshness to the story. First of all, her voice that you hear and her like I don't know her pencil skirts. I don't know her little personality is just so fresh. And then when we got to him, I'm like, okay, I like this. And so I think a lot of people say, oh, Christian fiction is all the same. Well, go read an Overdue Match because it's not all the same, and I
Yeah.
really loved it.
Well, I'm glad. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so as you get into their story and their romance, tell, I mean, we don't want to give too much away, but what were some of maybe the things that the things that were easy to write, and then maybe some of the challenges that came
Sh-
to writing the book?
Sure. Um, some will, I would say the biggest challenge is always, I like to write books that have representation, but those are not always my personal journey. Um, and
Mhm.
so I don't have alopecia, but of course my mom does. And I also talk to some other people that do. So it's having that balance of being authentic to their stories, but weaving it into Evangeline's story because hers is also different, but just still staying true to that, but being sensitive because it's not my personal journey as well. That's I think the hardest is just trying to find that balance and that line. Um, the easiest things were probably a bit Ty. Ty is a lot like my husband. Um, so I had a lot of trust issues early on in our marriage, and he was the one that was like never giving up and always like pushing
Mm.
and not in a pushy way, but in a he knew that I needed to be pushed type of thing and wasn't going to let me get away with it. So remembering back to our earlier in our relationship and then adding it into Tide, that was fun.
Oh, I love that. And then there's a whole ensemble cast of people, like we said, in this town. Maybe just mention a couple of them that readers can expect that will be popping up in the story.
Oh yeah. So there are three librarians in the small town altogether. We get Evangeline, Haley, and Martha. Haley gets her own story in book two, and Martha's in book three. So you'll definitely see more of
Ooh.
them. Yeah, and then Kitty Purry, which is Evangeline's cat. She has her own personality,
The
which I
name,
think just
I'm pretty sure I laughed out loud when I read her name. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So even though she's just a cat, I mean, I kind of love her.
Yeah. I love, are you a cat person? Do you have cats
I have
or?
a dog. I'm a cat and dog person. I like them both equally. And I've written dogs before in books, but I've never written a cat. So I wanted to, she felt like a cat person to me.
Yeah. Yeah. So fun. Okay, so I would love to hear more about your writing journey. I know so many times, I mean, there's the ups and the downs. So just tell us, like, kind of the when you knew you wanted to be a writer, and maybe some of where that journey took you.
Sure, yeah. Well, I always have written, even when I was, like teeny tiny. In elementary school, they had like a young authors program, and so we would do like writing prompts in classes and stuff, and then they would choose like one per class. And so I got a few of my stories published in like the school little thing early on. I think it just kind of stuck with me. Yeah, I was a student missionary when I was in college. I went to China, and I had some free times like in the evenings. So I started writing then, and it just kind of continued just here and there because I finished college, I got married, I had kids. So there wasn't a lot of time devoted to writing during that period. When my son was little, I kind of got back to it because I felt like I was losing myself in motherhood.
Mhm.
And I just needed some sanity and figure out who I am. And so I was trying to, I got back into writing and that kind of helped balance it a little bit more. So yeah, I finished a first novel, excuse me, got it critiqued and rewrote it and all that stuff. And then I was like, okay, now I guess it's time to publish it. And
Yeah.
so I started praying about like, all right, what agents should I query or what editors should I send it to and things like that. And I was praying about it and God just told me like very clearly, like, no, you need to be independently publish this. And it's not really what I wanted to hear. I was kind of upset. I also had no money to
Yeah.
independently publish. And I was like, I don't know how I was going to pay for this. But this was after my daughter was born and we were done having kids. So I had a whole bunch of like baby stuff, cribs and strollers and like all this stuff. I was like, well, I'm going to sell all my baby stuff. And an editor reached out and was like, I sometimes tithe my editing work. So whatever you have, we'll work it, so like just whatever I sold for my baby
Wow.
things, I paid for her for editing, and that's how I published my first book.
That's an awesome story. Like, God just showed you clearly, and yeah, I mean, I've never heard of that before
Yeah, it was
in the 30
great.
years in publishing,
I
yeah.
know, everything just kind of lined up, like, I found, a photo on Instagram that I was like, "This photo will be an amazing, book cover," and so I tracked down the photographer, and I emailed them asking them if I could have the rights to make it into book cover, and they're like, "Sure, no problem." Like, they didn't ask for payment, they didn't ask for anything, anything like that. I was like,
Wow.
"Great." So, yeah, so I just kind of made a little book cover off of an Instagram photo from a it was a professional photo from a photographer for a wedding photo.
Right.
Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, so just everything lined up that way, and I independently published for a while. I have I don't 16 books independently. I don't even remember. There's a lot. And
Yeah.
then, it kind of felt like I was at a crossroads again. Like, do I keep going this direction, or is it time to knock on the door of traditionally published to see if it's time to do that now? It just seemed like that was where I was at, and so yeah, I signed up for a virtual conference, and was just like, all right, well, I'll just pitch to an editor and see how it goes. I have this book. It's If it doesn't work out, I'll just independently publish it again. I've done it several
Yeah,
times. I
right.
know what I'm doing.
Don't lose anything, yeah.
Yeah, so I did. I pitched horribly. It was a lot of huh, uh, yeah, my book is about a guy and a girl, and stuff happens, and they fall in love. But I pitched to Rachel McMillan, and we've had like an online type of relationship, so she knew me through that. Anyway, so she offered me representation, even though I blew it, in my opinion. And Bethany House bought the the book. It was they published it last year, All's Fair in Love and Christmas, and then
Oh, very
yeah, and then I
cool.
sold this three book contract with them, and that's where we're at.
I love it. So the first one is An Overdue Match. Do you have
Never
a
did
title that
one.
you can give us?
The
Yes,
second book
for the second.
is Hearts in Circulation.
Ooh, cute.
So the library acquires a bookmobile, so in circulation.
I
Bookmobile.
love it. It's so cool. I love it. And the third one, do you know yet? Are you still
The
working
third
on the
one,
third one?
I am halfway through writing. Doesn't have
Okay.
has a working title, but it doesn't have a full title.
Yeah. We'll wait. We'll be patient with that. But I love it. And I think it's so awesome that like God definitely gives us these talents. He gave you these talents when you're little and writing and that love there. One thing that I especially love that you said is you got back to writing to like because you felt like you were losing yourself. And, I have 10 kids. I've written over 90 books, and people are like, "How can you write?" I'm like, "Oh, no. This is like my me time. It's my
Yeah,
me time.
keeps me
It's
sane.
my just it keeps me sane. It's fun. It's creative. It's like a break, and the characters do what I say. I can make them do what they what I want them to, and you get to be an adult and have conversations and meetings. I don't know. It is I think it's really cool as moms, but as my kids have gotten older, like I've published a book with my son who's 30. We had our first book published by Enclave last year, and then we're working on book two will be out, book three's coming out. Like it's just cool to see how God has even used that for my kids. I think
Mm.
sometimes I feel like guilty. Have you ever felt guilty? Like, okay, I need to go write, or it's book deadline, or we're just having pizza for dinner. Have you ever had those moments as you're balancing parenting and writing?
Um, I will say that God definitely knew what he was doing, of course. About being independently published early on when my kids were really small, because I didn't have deadlines. Like, I could just
Mhm.
write when I could and not write when I didn't have to, and there wasn't that stress of having a deadline, and
Mhm.
that really worked for us. So like I would write during nap times, or just things like that, but still able to keep family time very much family time, and
Yeah.
writing time kind of separate. Now that they're in school, I write when they're in school, and then when they're home, it's family time, and weekends, family time, and I'll take summers
Yeah.
off because they're home, and things like that. And I like to stay ahead of schedule so that I don't feel that stress of deadlines.
Mhm. Good. Keep doing that. Keep going with that.
Yeah, I wanna be I always wanna be, like, steps ahead, like, I turned in my book, like, 2 or 3 months in advance, and they're like, I was like,
What are
it's
you
okay. No,
doing?
you're not ready for this," like, I had the book 70% written before they even contracted it,
Yeah.
so, like, I knew I was gonna write it. Like I said, if nobody wants it, that's fine, I'll just do it myself.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah, editors are probably like, "Oh, goodness. Thank you. Thank you that you have a book that's on time." I love it. Okay, let's talk about the spiritual themes, of your fiction. How important is that to you, and how do you weave them into your stories?
So I would definitely say that some of my books are a lot more subtle in it, and then others are a lot more obvious. You know,
Mhm.
you I'm not gonna. Some people like their brand is very what you're getting as far as your spiritual.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, with mine, I have some very subtle. I have some very not in your face, but more obvious. So I might be a toss up.
Yeah.
um, I think I'm probably more subtle as I've gotten along, but it's definitely still there. It's
Mhm.
just not. They're not going to be. I'm not going to write a sermon. They're not going to be listening to a
Right.
sermon. They might
Right.
have some prayers, but there's not going to be like huge long prayers type of thing.
Mhm.
It's going to be more just woven in type of thing.
Yeah.
With an overdue match, it's just this idea of you are worthy of love. Like
Mhm.
you may feel like love gave up on you, but it hasn't because God's always pursuing you because God is love.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's in there.
I love that because I think the whether I mean, the level of how much, you know, stuff is woven in Christianity or faith, it's always like the how the writer thinks is going the worldview is going to be in there,
Yeah,
right? So if someone is completely anti-Christian worldview,
right.
that will weave itself in, even though, they might not have blatant,
Exactly.
against Christianity or whatever. So I think it's important that our worldview is woven in and it's, clean and happy. And even those hard subjects, like she just got dumped and she's hurt from relationships, there's this lightheartedness and
Hmm.
this, just even to the writing to the book, that's just uplifting. And I
Yeah,
think that's important too.
yeah. I my books tend to be, especially recently, um, they're rom-coms, and they're light, but they're not shallow. So they're deep
Hmm.
but not heavy. Yeah,
Right.
so you're still gonna get stuff, like things happen to people, but it's light, or at least
Hmm.
that's my goal.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's so important because, I mean, as I have 7 daughters, and the youngest is 14 now, so but pretty much we go to the library and check out books, and they look from the cover like, "This looks like a clean book," and I always do the open test. So go
Mhm.
to the library, open the book in the middle, start reading, and I'm like, "Nope, can't read this one."
Yeah.
And even if the covers look cute, even if I read the beginning of the book, I'm like, "Oh, this seems really sweet. This seems like a little cute,
Mhm.
uplifting story." Do that open in the middle test and start reading, and there's junk and there's language and there's people doing things that I don't want my kids reading about.
Right.
So I mean, the worldview of the author comes through, but there's also, like you said the depth to it. Like there's important things that are in the story, like
Mhm.
important themes. There's important feelings. There's, discovering your purpose and your worthiness, and all those things are themes that I want my kids or anybody,
Right.
myself, to read. And but it's in a very fun package. And even though, we say there's her baggage is heavy. It's fun, it's cute, it's light. It's one that you could take for a beach read. You could read it on a weekend for fun.
Mhm.
I cannot wait to dig in more. I've just been thoroughly enjoying it. So I appreciate that, especially, having all these kids that love to read. It's like, here, this is, oh, you can happily read this book. And I
Yeah.
think they'll love it.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah. So, this is book 1, and the book 2, who's the main character of book 2?
The main character book 2 is Haley, Haley Holt.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
And she shows up, but she's a little she
She's
has a
very
personality
exuberant.
too. Yes. I'm trying to think of my word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's pretty exuberant. She's the sunshine. So book 2 is sunshine and grumpy. And she's definitely the sunshine. Uh, he has a reason for being grumpy in book 2. I have to say book 2 might be my favorite.
Okay. I'm gonna have to have you back to talk about book 2 because this is pretty darn cute.
Yeah, yeah. I really like book 2. I just sent
Yeah.
in the edits last week, so we'll see how it goes.
And that's freshest in your mind. Um,
But yeah,
yeah.
book 2 is pretty fresh in my mind. I just read through book 3 from what I have written so I can start writing it again. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's pretty cute too.
I I love it. This is so fun. Well, you're definitely a new author to me, but I'm one I'm gonna keep following.
Well,
So
thank you.
I appreciate that. Yeah. So as one thing that I love as we're getting ready to wrap up, I always love to hear some of the Christian novels that you've enjoyed. It could be something 20 years ago, it could be something 20 days ago. What are some of your favorite Christian novels?
I love anything by Nicole Deese. She's like probably my favorite contemporary Christian romance author. She's amazing. All of her books are amazing. My critique partner is Tony Shiloh, so obviously I love all
I
her
love Tony.
books.
She's the sweetest too. I love Tony.
Yeah, yeah, she's really, really sweet. So I love hers. Elizabeth Camden is one of my favorite for historical. I love how a lot of her heroines are in STEM jobs. Um, they're just smart, and I feel like I
Yes.
learn a lot when I read her books, but they're also really
Yes.
romantic. So yeah, I love her. I love her books too. Karen Whitmire is just fun. So anytime I want
Yeah.
something that's like, you're just gonna have some fun with it, then I'll reach for
Yeah.
one of her books.
Yours remind me a little bit of Bethany Turner.
Mhm. Oh yeah, I'm
Just
I'm her fan
with the
club
fun.
president.
I
That's
Are you serious? Oh my
what I
gosh,
call
I love
myself.
her. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, she's
I
great.
just
I love her.
discovered her this year. I just discovered her this year, and I'm like, "What have I been missing out on?"
Oh no,
It's
she's
so
great. She's
fun.
like the queen of rom-com for
Yeah.
Christian stuff. She's really sweet. I like her a lot.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, even though your stories are totally different, I mean, just the lightness, the fun
Yeah.
lightness of it
Angela Ruth
reminded me of
Strong
her.
too. I really like her because
Yes.
she's got that nice to me balance of a deep book but light. And I
Mhm.
always like that because sometimes you can just kind of have light and silly, um, or deep and heavy. And I like the
Yeah.
middle parts. So Angela's really good at doing that. And she's got some really great similes to her. I love wordplay. So her similes and metaphors
Yes!
are really great.
Yeah, I love her. She was here, in Little Rock, for a day, so we had fun with her. We were just talking about her yesterday because 'cause I'm like, "Well, remember my friend Angela?"
She's flying
And
all
we
over the
both were like,
place.
"She is so fun, she is so fun." So, yeah.
She's
She's a
great because she's an
blast to hang out with.
extrovert too. You don't really see very many, literary people that are extroverts. So I can talk to her and she'll do all the talking and it's great and I don't have to do anything.
Oh, oh, yeah. No, we had fun. We drove around all around Little Rock, showed her all the places, me and my 2 daughters, and she was a blast to hang out with. It's so cool. Okay, so after these 3 books, do you have plans for more? What are you working on next?
I don't have
You don't
anything
know.
in mind yet. It will come.
Okay.
I'm kind of a little focused. So now that
Yeah.
I'm working on book 3 in Martha, probably when she's about 75% done, I'll start being like, okay, editors,
Hmm.
what do you want next? What are you looking
Yeah.
for? Tell me what you're looking for, and I'll come up with an idea for it.
There you go. Yeah, and it's so great to have those relationships with our editors too. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, very cool. All right, and so where can people go to find out more information about you and all your books?
Yeah, so my website is sarahmonzonwrites.com, and there should be a bunch of information there. I post on Instagram pretty regularly. That's probably like, as far as social media, I'm probably most regular on Instagram. I'm also on Facebook.
Yeah, very cool. Well, we will definitely connect with you and follow you. And her last name's spelled Monzon, like
Yeah.
just like it sounds. So,
Yep.
but we'll put those in the show notes too. But Sarah, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.